has sprung, and so have the savings at TJ O'Mahony. Transform your outdoor space with paving flags from just $3.95 each, and fence panels starting at $32.95. Blast away winter grime with the Karcher K4 Classic Pressure Washer. Was $239.95, now $199.95. Shop tjomahony.ie or in-store. Hurry, these offers won't last forever.
TJ's all you need to get the job done.
Hey, Klarna here. You probably know Klarna for flexible online payments, but did you know you can get up to £3,880 in annual benefit value with a Klarna membership? Get subscriptions, airline miles, and access to over 1,800 airport lounges. Discover more and sign up now at Klarna.com or in the Klarna app. Annual value amount reflects your membership's total available benefits, such as subscriptions and discounts. Actual results will vary based on benefit usage. Klarna membership offered for a monthly fee. Cancel anytime in the Klarna app. Exclusions, conditions, and limitations apply to membership benefits. Klarna membership terms apply.
From rusty chains to fancy frames and everything in between. Sign up for British Heart Foundation's iconic London to Brighton bike ride. Because it's not your wheels, it's how you use them. Whether you're a brand new rider or seasoned pro, challenge yourself this June and make your ride matter with British Heart Foundation. And you won't need any fancy gear, just your helmet and your bike. Sign up today, search London to Brighton bike ride, and keep us beating.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and Crime World is back at Cork Opera House on March 27th, where Niall and I will be uncovering the secret world of Christy, the Dapper Don Kinahan. Join us for this live show. Tickets, corkpodcastfestival.ie. The father of murdered John George suspect Michael Malley has insisted that his son feared for his life from an Irish mafia before he was shot dead on the Costa Blanca in recent weeks. Malley, he says, was giving evidence to police and magistrates against George's alleged killers, who stabbed him in the legs and then shot him before Christmas 2024. Today I'm talking with Niall Donald about the latest developments in the case. And you're listening to Crime World, a podcast from crimeworld.com. I mean, this murder of John George in Spain is playing out like a drama.
Absolutely. I mean,
It's quite incredible.
yeah, and it really does seem that that part of Spain is sort of gripped with a lot of gangland crime at the moment. It seems to be the centre of a number of sort of international criminal gangs seem to have all been focused on that location. Moving up, I think, a bit from the sort of Porto Banús area, or certainly maybe it's a different type of crime. Because obviously Michael Malley, who was a Czech MMA fighter, who was certainly suspected of killing John George, was himself found shot dead, which you would know. And his father, Michael Malley's father, has spoken to a Spanish newspaper, I suppose, following his son's discovery. And he's spoken about the fact that what he describes as the Irish mafia didn't want him to testify at any trial.
Will I give you a little bit of background here before we go into what he said? So John George was a Belfast man who went on a holiday to Alicante the Christmas before last, just before Christmas. And he was certainly, he seemed to have sort of friends, associates out there. He was out there and he contacted his family back in Belfast to say he was coming home and he was due to get this flight. Never got on the flight. The family immediately became concerned for his welfare due to whatever the nature of the conversations they were having with him was. And they travelled out to Spain, to Alicante, in an effort to, I think, make the Guardia Civil out there realise how seriously they were taking the fact that he hadn't shown up. He was missing. He wasn't answering his phone. Very unlike him. Spoke to his father about 3 times a day, usually. Always checked in no matter what he was doing. So they kind of went out there and rightly so kicked up a fuss. They did a lot of social media themselves. They organised search parties, and they went to visit the guards who were the Guardia Civil, who were in charge of the, at that point, missing persons investigation. So ultimately, the body of John George was found in a remote area under a lemon tree outside Alicante. The police that found him discovered that he had been stabbed in the legs, almost to incapacitate him before he had been shot in the head. Terrible death.
TJ O'Mahony.
Spring has sprung, and so have the savings at TJ O'Mahony. Transform your outdoor space with paving flags from just $3.95 each, and fence panels starting at $32.95. Blast away winter grime with the Karcher K4 Classic Pressure Washer. Was $239.95, now $199.95. Shop tjomahony.ie or in store. Hurry, these offers won't last forever.
TJ's all you need to get the job done.
Now, they had been brought to that location by said former MMA fighter, Mali, who seemed to have been cooperating with them somehow. In the aftermath of that, he, along with another Belfast man called Johnny Smith, were brought before the courts, as is the Spanish way, as suspects, while the magistrate continues to investigate this murder inquiry. It's a murder inquiry, obviously. Johnny Smith is in a relationship with a girl from Belfast, a young teenager called Madison Allen, who is on OnlyFans and a bit of a star of that. While he is a suspect in the case, he and her go on the run, and they ultimately get married.
In Gibraltar,
in Gibraltar. She's now Madison Smith. And they come back eventually to Spain. I think they're extradited, or he is extradited as the suspect in the case, while this case continues. And I think when they're before the courts in Spain as suspects, they have to give their location. They have to hand over usually their passports. They have to sign on either before the magistrate or at the police station once a week, twice a week, whatever. So the two of them are up before the courts. But the suspicion would be that Mali has been cooperating with the police, and that, you know, he has sort of been essentially the whistleblower that has pretty much, well, solved certainly the whereabouts of John George.
Yeah, and I mean, he's clearly cooperated to the extent of saying, I know where the body is, and here it is. And certainly he obviously then ultimately is found dead.
Like in a neighbourhood, I was talking to Stephen Moore, our colleague, about this last week, because he broke the story about that. He had been killed, say, not last weekend, the weekend before, so we're talking about nearly 2 weeks ago now, and was found like at 1:30 in the morning, just on a sort of a street in a residential neighbourhood.
Yeah, so I mean, it's obviously a planned hit. Like, it's not something else that there is no other explanation, or nobody is seeking to give that other explanation. And obviously, as I was saying, there's a lot of criminal figures floating around that part of the world. I mean, we have some of our own, like John Gilligan and Fat Tony Armstrong, though they're not connected with these, but there does seem to be a merging of a lot of criminal gangs in that area. But obviously, his father now has spoken to the Spanish newspapers.
And what's he said?
Well, he said that his son was in fear from the Irish mafia, as he described them. And he says, my son testified against those who murdered the Northern Irishman, clearly speaking about John George. The mafia don't want him to testify at the trial. That's why they killed him. He was afraid. That's why we told him to come home. But he wasn't allowed to come home because the judge forbade it. Because obviously he is a person of...
And you see, Niall, if his father is saying that he testified before the courts, so the media aren't allowed in to the courts while this investigation continues by the magistrate. That would all be private, and it's sort of held as such in camera. And the media in these cases in Spain are only brought in really at the very last minute to hear the details of the case.
It's actually something like a grand jury in the US, where you give a certain amount of evidence to see if a charge can be brought. It doesn't actually mean that evidence would even feature in the trial, but clearly he's given...
And as such, by his comments, his father is confirming that he was sort of giving evidence against others who were also suspected as being involved in the case of John George's murder.
And obviously the reason Michael Malley has... Well, we can only presume, but the presumption might be that he feels he played a lesser role in this killing, and therefore he shouldn't maybe be held responsible as for being the gunman or for being the prime mover behind it. Which, of course, John George's family have in part sort of said that they don't believe Malley was the man who ordered it or anything.
Is the father still living in the Czech Republic?
Yeah, his father's in the Czech Republic, and he speaks about wanting to bring him back home there. Now, obviously, as you said, he's a person of interest or whatever, a suspect, but really the conditions would be very similar to somebody charged, that they may have to hand over the passport, or they'd certainly, they wouldn't be allowed fly around without permission. And he says, my son worked as a truck driver. He loved freedom and life, Spain and its people. He would never hurt anyone. He was in a car accident and was ill for a long time and without financial resources. I wanted him to return to the Czech Republic. If he had returned, he would definitely have lived. Now he is dead. And he basically goes on to say that Mali got in financial trouble over in Spain, and that got him sucked into crime, really, as a way to earn a little bit of money to survive. And he also acknowledges in the interview that he did know Johnny Smith. Mali and Johnny Smith would have been known to each other anyway. Obviously, that's not proof of a murder, but
the reference of the Irish mafia, I don't think they would be considered an Irish mafia. The grouping that he's referring to are a very chaotic, drug-fueled grouping who live out their lives on social media, and they certainly would not be seen as a particularly organised grouping, although there seems to have been a lot of money has been made out there, suspected through drug dealing, etc. But the mafia tag has been put on them by Mali's father and not by an official, Guardia
No, it's
Civil
not. It's not. I mean, obviously, the Spanish police have previously referred to the killing cartel as the Irish mafia. They're certainly not being referred. This isn't who's being talked about here.
TJ, O'Mahony.
Spring has sprung, and so have the savings at TJ O'Mahony. Transform your outdoor space with paving flags from just $3.95 each, and fence panels starting at $32.95. Blast away winter grime with the Karcher K4 Classic Pressure Washer. Was $239.95, now $199.95. Shop tjomahony.ie or in store. Hurry, these offers won't last forever.
TJ's all you need to get the job done.
Sounds like a lawnmower, doesn't it? But it's actually the sound of someone's dream coming true. What's better than knowing that this tiny patch of turf is yours and nobody else's? Is it time to make your move? At Lloyds, we're ready when you are. Britain's #1 direct lender for first-time buyers. Mortgages on Lloyds. Bank on Lloyds.
Based on total value of lending, July to December 2025. To verify, see lloydsbank.com/bankonLloyds.
And the father also speaks directly about the murder of John George and says his son, he says, he told me he didn't do it. And he also denies some of the other reports that which have been from the very start, saying Mali was a sort of soldier who'd firearms training. And he says, my son was never a soldier. I was a soldier, and I raised him with the values of respect and honesty. So, yeah, it must be sort of heart-wrenching for a father to lose a son in that way. But he's clearly putting forward this idea that his son, and of course maybe that's his perspective, wasn't the prime mover in this murder.
So, I mean, hardly a week goes by, then there isn't some other drama that's happening out on the areas known as the Orhuela Costa. It's in the Costa Blanca, just outside Alicante, in the Torrevieja area. I only know it from work. Yeah. From having gone over there for work. It's always a bad sign. Yeah. Nicola Talent knows the area from going on work purposes. But
check out your water slide for sure.
No. But there has also been this car crash involving Madison Smith, where a man, an English expat, has been killed in this car crash. She has been ordered by a court to stay off social media. She disputes that. They regularly send messages to herself, and Johnny Smith regularly send messages directly to members of the media who are writing about them. They regularly post videos of this lifestyle they're living out there. And it certainly seems like just a really chaotic situation.
Yeah, there's a number of criminal gangs there. I mean, there's a big Liverpool sort of connection over there as well, a big group of criminals there. There's been a number of shootings in between those groupings out there. Certainly Michael Malley's from the Czech Republic, but there has been a guy relatively recently arrested there, described as being the head of an Eastern European mafia, with links to the Czech Republic and other parts of the Balkans as well. So there's been a large number of shootings and violence, and I suppose it's, as you said, these, certainly the Irish aspect of these and the Liverpool aspect, it doesn't tend to be highly structured and organised, but there's a lot of people on the run basically from because they're at legal peril in their own country, and they all seem to be coming here, and it's become a big political issue for that part of Spain.
And at the same time, it's a very popular resort for well-heeled Irish people who have second homes out there and who holiday out there, oblivious to that sort of criminality that's operating shoulder to shoulder with them. It's similar down to the Costas, a little bit the same.
It is. It just moves, I suppose, every now and again, and you get this collection.
I think Portobello is still a centre of a lot of criminality, and I do think that the Kinahan organisation still have a footprint there, undoubtedly.
Oh, I think so, but I think it might actually be a kind of a higher level of criminality in that, maybe down in the Portobello, because this seems to be where the more...
They seem more highbrow, do they?
They seem a little, well, I mean, what's happening in the Orwella is there's these constant shootings and violence, and a lot of it seems to be the very chaotic criminals. And it's what happens in Spain, I think, is that they, the Spanish officials, possibly like Ireland, if they can ignore it to some extent, because for a while, but it reaches this point at which it's damaging to the local area and becomes a political issue, and that seems to have being a rising damaging to tourism, and there is genuine outrage, I think, at the moment over there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, no doubt we'll be coming back to the story very, very soon again. Yep. Thanks, Niall.
Thanks, Nicola.
TJ, all my homies.
Spring has
Good morning, everybody. 5 to 11. Give it out, Teddy. Okay, Dad. So I was just listening to the radio, guys, for a change. I talk all the time and tell you about me day. Hello to Mina, Hamilton, Krishna, anybody I missed there. Scots Wise Grow, how are you, Finn? How are you, Scottish Weed Grower? Big up, my friend. Welcome in. Welcome in. I've just got a little bit of, I don't know what it is. Teddy, come on. It's okay, yeah, I know. So sometimes I like listening to the radio instead of me waffling around the place, guys. But it's a beautiful day. I'm just hanging out some washing. So I'm going to do it over there. Ted. Enough. So if you don't mind listening to the radio for a little while. I don't, let me just, sorry if I deleted that person. Anyone who asks me about Roblox must be under 18, okay? I'm nearly 40 years of age. So I don't play Roblox. It's lovely here, guys. It's lovely. I don't know what temperature it is. I'd say it's about 15, 14. So I thought, just for a little change, we'll listen to the radio, right? Because sometimes I get bored of hearing my own voice. So just bear with me there a second now.
To fancy frames and everything between. Sign up for British Heart Foundation's iconic London to Brighton bike ride, because it's not your wheels, it's how you use them. Whether you're a brand new rider or seasoned pro, challenge yourself this June and make your ride matter with British Heart Foundation. And you won't need any fancy gear, just your helmet and your bike. Sign up today, search London to Brighton bike ride, and keep up beating.
Blood test, scan, treatment. Ash knows the drill by now. But there's something else that helps her to live with cancer. The Macmillan online community. Log in, post, reply, chat, support, laugh. in a safe, anonymous online forum that's open 24 hours a day. If you need someone who knows what it's like to have cancer, search Macmillan Online Community.
Hey, Klarna here. You probably know Klarna for flexible online payments, but did you know you can get up to £3,880 in annual benefit value with a Klarna membership? Get subscriptions, airline miles, and access to over 1,800 airport lounges. Discover more and sign up now at Klarna.com or in the Klarna app. Annual value amount reflects your membership's total available benefits, such as subscriptions and discounts. Actual will vary based on benefit usage. Klarna membership offered for a monthly fee. Cancel anytime in the Klarna app. Exclusions, conditions, and limitations apply to membership benefits. Klarna membership terms apply.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and Crime World is back at Cork Opera House on March 27th, where Niall and I will be uncovering the secret world of Christy, the Dapper Don Kinahan. Join us for this live show. Tickets, corkpodcastfestival.ie. He's the highest-ranking Kinahan cartel target that Ireland has successfully convicted. Sean McGovern, who is Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man, was extradited from Dubai and now faces a likely 20-year sentence before the Special Criminal Court. But who is McGovern and where did he emerge from? How did this unlikely-looking criminal rise from street dealer to the highest ranks of the Kinahan cartel? Today I'm talking with Robin Schiller and Niall Donald about the life and crimes of Sean McGovern. You're listening to part one of a Crime World podcast from crimeworld.com. Robin, you were in court for the guilty plea by Sean McGovern. He wasn't.
He was, no. He appeared via video link from Portlaoise, and he'd done that for the last few kind of sittings. So this has been going on for a few months now, where he's appeared via video link, and his barristers have kind of made comments along the line of, look, we might need a trial necessarily. There's work on the background, but nothing's been confirmed yet. And roll on to Monday this week, he appears via video link again, and his second senior counsel, two senior counsel, Michael Bowman, said that he could be arraigned on two of the charges.
He's two senior counsels.
He was given legal aid.
Plus he has private as well?
No, just legal aid. There was a submission of a statement of means last year. The kind of three judges in the Special Criminal Court, they'd raised concerns that not enough information was given about his life in Dubai, where he'd obviously been for 8 years, but actually they kind of decided, right, we're just going to grant him legal aid. So he's given 4 barristers, 2 senior counsel and 2 junior counsel. So if it would have went to trial, this case, it would have been 2 separate cases as well. And
yes,
effectively saved the state a lot of money. And
I think we surmised at that time it was the state were slightly goosed because they had, in the time he'd been in the United Arab Emirates at Daniel Kinahan's side, the Criminal Assets Bureau had gone and seized his home in Kildare Road in Crumlin, sold it, and essentially stripped him of any assets he had in this country. So, when they're looking at legal aid, then what do you do? It's very difficult to find out what assets people have abroad. So it kind of went.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be able to mount a defence, or else you're going to lose an appeal. That's the way it goes. When I saw him in court that time, he was first brought back to Ireland. Like, he doesn't strike you as this is an intimidating, sort of fearsome gangland figure, does he? He's quite sort of polite and
far from it. Like, in terms of being intimidating, when he was brought back that time, he looked a bit dishevelled. He'd obviously been in a military flight for X amount of hours going across from Dubai, but he was polite in court. And the registrar kind of spoke to him, he couldn't hear her, and he kind of smiled at her. And it's the same in via video link the last few times in court. He's always please judge, thank you judge. When she couldn't hear him, he put up his hand, and always a kind of polite figure, which is completely at odds obviously with the serious criminal offences he's now.
And he's a slight figure. He's been certainly he's popular actually in Portlaoise prison because he's seen as a model prisoner. He's polite to the prison staff. He's working out. He's keeping his head down. He's obviously has got his head around that he's going to serve a period of time here in Ireland. He knows that since he came back. He was facing the serious charge of murder, which could have meant life, which could have meant anything up to 25, 30 years and then been released on licence. Or this plea deal that was going on in the background means he waits his sentence next month. But anything between 15 and 20 years, I think, is not, outside the realms of what's going to happen to him. And he does seem to have that ability to get his head around that and just, this is how he's going. This is his quickest way back to freedom. He's only a young guy still, 39.
39, I think 40 last month, but yeah, relatively young, and I think he's just accepted his fate now. You know, the big thing for him would have been taking the murder charge off the table if he was convicted of that, and I think the state's case against him was very strong. Would have been a mandatory life sentence, and I know the average for a life sentence is around 21 years, but for an organised crime murder, you're looking at, you know, in excess of 25. I think it was, you know, yesterday I was looking at the Limerick, the Kieran Keane murder case from 2002, I think 2003.
Desi Dundon is still in there.
And lads still in there 20 plus years later, and that's for, you know, high level organised crime murders.
And of course, the difference is, you know, if you get 25 years as part of a life sentence or 25 years just given to you as a tariff, it's a huge difference being on license, because people always say life should mean life, and, you know, they get maybe outraged that life sentence prisoners are walking around, but there are huge restrictions on them. And we, you know, if you are given a life sentence, you're only ever allowed out on license, and you can really be brought back in for almost nothing and be back into prison. So Sean McGovern will almost definitely escape that fate anyway.
Yeah, like the 71A charge, he's now pleaded guilty to two of them. It does carry a maximum sentence of life in prison. And, you know, the law does say that in really extenuating circumstances, a judge can depart from, if there's a guilty plea, normally you wouldn't get a life sentence. A judge can say, considering all the factors, even in spite of your guilty plea, you're getting a life sentence, but that rarely, if ever, happens, and it's not going to happen in this case, I don't know.
And would be immediate grounds for appeal for McGovern on that basis. So basically, so how did it go off in court anyway? What was the atmosphere like? Who was there?
So it was in the Special Criminal Court, court number 11 of the Criminal Courts of Justice. It was fairly busy yesterday. There's a few different cases on, a few different sentencing hearings and cases for mention. And it was fairly busy. You know, you had Noel Kerwin's family were in there, his children. Large number of press were there as well. Two separate guard investigation teams, because it's obviously two different crimes. You had the investigation team from Lucan, who were looking after the murder charge, and then you had the investigators from the Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau, who were looking after the conspiracy to murder James Gately and that side of things. You had a number of onlookers. I suppose it's, you know, come back a lot more since after COVID, that, you know, people who, it's their hobby, I suppose, going to the courts and looking at different cases. It's their interest. There's a fair few of them there. So shortly after 11, McGovern's case was called. He popped up in video link. The judge couldn't hear him initially. He's going to sit in his boot in Portlaoise prison, and he was told, we can't hear you. So I think he's there by himself. He stood up, he kind of fiddled around with a knob on the screen. Could hear him then. He said his thank yous to the judge, and I can hear you now, thank you, all very polite. And then his senior counsel, Mike Bowman, said that he could be arraigned on two of the charges. And this would have all been discussed, I suppose, in the background for the last few weeks with Mr. Kerwin's family. They would have been informed by the state what was happening. So it wasn't a surprise to them, because the last thing you want in a court case like that is that the family of a murder victim be surprised. So he was arraigned on two of the five charges, both Section 71A's directing the activities of the criminal gang.
Yeah.
In relation to the Noel Curran one, the date, the offending period, was from October 20th, 2016, right up to the day of Noel Curran's murder on December 22nd. And in relation to the James Gately plot, it's actually a fairly lengthy period of time. It was from 2015, October 2015, right up to 6th of April 2017. So it's a 21 period. So a wide range of time.
So October 2015 would have been a month after Gary Hutch was murdered. He was murdered in September 2015. So clearly what the state are going to say is there was a plot to kill Mago Gately from way before the Regency, because it has always been suggested that the Kinahan organisation believed James Mago Gately had a significant role in that Regency crime, and that it was from then he was targeted. But instead we're now hearing that he would have been targeted in and around the same time as his very good friend Gary Hutch, I think, whose casket he carried into the church.
Yeah, so at the very least you have, the charge which is admitted now is Sean McGovern directing surveillance James Gately in 2015, so long before the Regency, straight after Gary Hutch. And it kind of seems to be the case that within a few weeks of Gary Hutch's murder, they're kind of lining up other Hutch targets, James Gately being one. You obviously had the failed plot on Gerard Hutch in Spain on New Year's Eve 2015, New Year's Day 2016. So this is all long before the Regency.
Yeah, so it sort of shifts the timeline and the narrative a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah. A small piece of information like that that's released as part of, a case many years later makes you see, actually, there was numerous plots in place in 2015 by the Kinahan organisation.
And what Sean McGovern really, what's undone him, or the reason that he's been found guilty, really, it focuses on tracking devices. I mean,
he's pleaded guilty.
Yeah. That's what's, that's why he's had to plead guilty, isn't it? Because of those tracking devices are, there's physical evidence, I suppose, or certainly digital evidence of it.
Yeah, they do exactly what it says in the tin. They obviously track the target you want to track, but from the very moment you buy that device, I think this one was bought in a UK spyware shop in October 2016, but it tracks from the moment it's activated. So, Gardaí recovered that from Noel Kerwin's car in the day after the murder. They got the details, they got the analysis of it, and it tracked all the way back from Leeds, and they were able to kind of pinpoint different locations of where it stopped off in Ireland. And interestingly, I think it was November 3rd, so just over a month before the murder, that pinged on Kildare Road in Crumlin where Sean McGovern was living. So, he's directing this criminal organisation to carry out a murder, and he's bringing back a key bit of evidence back to his own family.
There once was a woman who lived in a shoe. A size too snug, but what could she do? But that's not where her story ends. Thanks to a little help from her experienced friends, she got her score into much better shape and relocated to a box-fresh new place with room to grow and a mortgage to suit. Now, she lives in a spacious 4-bedroom cowboy boot. Better your Experian credit score to help get mortgage ready. Experian. Better your score, better your story.
And that's the house that would later be seized by the Criminal Assets Bureau, not before he ripped the kitchen out of it and the toilet and all the rest of it. So the sentence hearing is going to happen late April, and my understanding of that is that the evidence that will be given by the Gardaí relates not only just to tracking devices but conversations between himself and Daniel Kinahan as they direct this crime from the United Arab Emirates. You're talking phone traffic here. This is actual conversations that's going to come out. The evidence against him is, by all accounts, pretty phenomenal. And it will give us a deep understanding of the fact that to the cartel, murder is just another piece of business. And the conversations are obviously very cold and businesslike in relation to it. But we will have to await for that. That'll be an interesting day in court. That said, I find I'm sort of mixed emotions about why the state should accept guilty pleas from Sean McGovern. This is the biggest target ever of the Kinahan organisation that we have pumped hundreds of millions into investigating since 2016 and before that. Certainly the case against Sean McGovern has been built over years, and getting him back was a struggle in itself, going to the United Arab Emirates with that warrant, which was released the day of the sanctions. McGovern's face was up there the day those sanctions were announced in Dublin Castle, was it? Dublin Castle or the City Hall? But he was there not sanctioned, but the arrest warrant, the existing arrest warrant was released at that point. That's the time we knew he was wanted for murder. So that's 2021.
April 2022.
April 2022. Okay. So this then sits there in the ether, and the United Arab Emirates don't seem to move on it since then. Eventually they do towards the end of 2024, more than 2 years later. And for those few years, he's lived a free man in Dubai. He has, had a decent lifestyle. He's out there for 10 years in total, really, with his partner, Anita Freeman. We'll come back to her. But he's eventually brought back, having fought the extradition, and he goes into custody in May of last year. And he's given the file, which contains within it the information. The state is so confident that it has evidence against him for the murder of Noel Kerwin, and yet a plea deal is accepted ultimately. Now, the plea deal benefits both the state and Sean McGovern. Is it accepted on the basis that we can now approach the Emirates and say, Right, we struggled to get him back, but he's pleaded guilty to 2 serious charges. Does it look good for Ireland when looking for someone else from the Emirates that they have this case that the perpetrator, the suspect has pleaded guilty, has admitted his role in this serious crime, and therefore when looking for somebody above him, i.e. Daniel Kinahan, they've a clearer pathway to it with Emirati officials?
It may be the case. I mean, certainly if you were to argue from the DPP side, they would say that there's always a risk when you go to a murder trial. We saw that in the Regency, and that if you have digital evidence, phone evidence, and I think you mentioned the 2 handles, bon and knife in your story today, that even if you have that degree of communication, you still have to attribute that to a phone. They absolutely may well be able to do that, and he's obviously taken a plea. But there's always a risk, and they might argue that there's a huge tariff for the charge directing a criminal organisation as part of this plot that can face up to a life, and that a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, as the old saying goes. But there's no doubt that if they had sought to extradite Sean McGovern on that charge, directing criminal organisation as part of a plot, that would have been much more difficult to extradite him from Dubai, I would imagine, than a flat murder charge. So yeah, it could be the case that they can go if a warrant is issued for